I'm Ken Whitaker, 66, retired electrician, and the guy who still labels breaker switches with the Sharpie. I own a 2-bedroom condo in Clearwater, Florida because I like neighbors I can fix things for and sunsets I don't have to drive to. Our HOA's rulebook is older than some relationships in this building, and the crown jewel is simple: no short-term rentals. 30-day minimum, leases on file, decals on windshields. Everyone signed it, everyone knows it. It's not just paper, it keeps our hallways. My daughter, Ashley Whitaker Brooks, 32, and her husband, Derek Brooks, 34, offered to watch the place while I drove Route 66 with my fishing buddy, Tom Avery from 4B. Watching the place meant watering the philodendron, snagging the circulars, and not touching the thermostat. I wrote the rules on a sticky note shaped like a trout. I left the key fob in a dish by the door because I am, fatally, trusting with family. 6 weeks later I rolled my suitcase into the lobby and into a cloud of cologne. A couple in floppy hats argued by the mailboxes about whether the host would comp late checkout. Shauna at the security desk lifted her readers and said, "Mr. Whitaker, your guests are energetic." "My who?" I said. "Your Airbnb folks," she said, like reading my horoscope. Upstairs, a keypad lock blinked where my deadbolt used to be. Inside, the couch had been tilted for better selfies. My blue Afghan, Ashley's college craft phase, was staged like a hotel throw. The guest room smelled like sunscreen and a distant Bluetooth speaker. On the dining table I found a welcome basket I did not assemble and a printed house guide, in Derek's lowercase bravado. No smoking, no parties, quiet hours 10 p.m. to 7 a.m., late checkout negotiable. A photo showed my clam-shaped lamp and insult to eye. There is a silence that arrives when you realize your kid turned your address into inventory. It sounds like an unplugged refrigerator. I opened my laptop. There it was. Coastal gem, walk to beach, sleep 6. My living room, my rug, my dented baseboard hidden by a heroic ficus. Reviews praised host Eric, and easy keypad check-in. Weekends were shaded like booked flights. My jaw did arithmetic. Policy violations times insurance headaches times neighbor wrath. I keep the important papers in a green folder labeled "Do not ruin your retirement." The condo policy's occupancy clause might as well be printed in traffic cone orange. No transient occupancy, no short-term rentals, no claims paid if the place functions as lodging. One candle left burning by a stranger could turn my savings into ash, and the insurer could simply say, "Denied." I started printing screenshots of the listing, booking calendars, reviews. The HOA page was Section 8. 3 circled, 30-day minimum, no exceptions without board approval. I printed my deed and the lobby sign that says, in tired Arial, "No rentals under 30 days." I stacked the pages and wrote a letter that tasted like aspirin. Derek and Ashley. Cease and desist all short-term rental activity at Unit 503 immediately. You are in violation of the association's governing documents, Section 8, 3, and my insurer's occupancy clause. Continuing exposes me to fines, loss of coverage, and neighbor complaints. Remove the listing within 24 hours and confirm in writing. Dad. I sent it certified mail, return receipt, because envelopes that make people sign have a way of focusing attention. Then I called our property manager, Calvin Pierce, whose voice sounds like a door closing correctly. I forwarded everything to the HOA board's address and used the platform's report listing tool, attaching the CCNR excerpt and my deed. For good measure, I walked down to Shauna and handed her an authorized guest list, names, dates, and a simple rule: if your ID doesn't match the list, the ELE. Derek texted me. "Ken, this is overblown. We're covering utilities. Everyone does it." He added a sun emoji, as if the sun were a co-defendant. Ashley sent, "Can we talk? Derek is stressed." I stared at the word R in a later message. "It's our place while we stay here," and felt the slow click of a boundary forming. That afternoon, a bald man in a tank top asked Shauna for a spare fob. "I'm meeting Derek for check-in," he said. Shauna tapped the new list with a nail that could file lawsuits. "Then Derek can meet you at the curb," she said. He left, muttering about customer service. Shauna winked at me. "Nice list." By evening, the grapevine ripened. Tom from 4B texted. "Saw luggage parade. Need help? Mrs. Ing from 3A, who moves with a cane and regards peace like medicine, left me a voicemail about towels left damp on the stair rail. And then the call I knew was coming. "Ken, it's Marcia." That's Marcia Gutierrez, HOA president, collector of minutes and grudges. "We've had complaints, Suitcases at 1 a.m. Pizza 4 Airbnb unit, propped pool gate. Please tell me this is a misunderstanding. It's a misjudgment, I said, and gave her the summary, the listing, the letter, the evidence, the insurance clause, the guest list. She made the sound of a beach ball deflating and said, "Good. The board will meet tomorrow. If the activity happened, the violator pays under last year's amendment, assuming we can show you weren't complicit." "Come look at my printing," I said. I refreshed the listing like a man checking the weather before a launch. Still up. Still, hot dates. Available. I hit report listing again and added a polite paragraph with impolite energy. Then I read my policy twice because fear likes rules when they're on your side. At 9 the next morning, an email landed, trust and safety. I braced for corporate fog and got a small sunny patch. "We've reviewed your documentation and confirmed the listing violates building rules. The listing has been removed." I watched the page go blank and let the relief slosh through like cold water. I made coffee strong enough to fix drywall. Derek called. I let it ring. Ashley sent a white flag. Then Marcia again. "Board hearing tomorrow. Bring yourself. Bring your folder." By noon a notice of hearing hung in the lobby with vinyl corners. Tom read it and lifted his chin. I nodded back, a ritual we learned on the Gulf. Fishermen don't clap, they acknowledge. I had my printouts, my green folder, and a sentence rattling around like a marble. Shared roofs need shared rules. It didn't feel like a sermon yet. It felt like physics in a building with thin walls. That night, I set the thermostat to 74, the way I like it, and laid out a polo that says I pay dues on time. I took photos of the unit as it was, no damage, no party glitter, no mystery dents, just a few water rings and my Afghan a little too diagonal. I slept badly, woke early, and made a tab, hearing. If peace needs paperwork here, I'll bring a cart. Now. The hearing felt like a small-town trial conducted under fluorescent lights and a framed photograph of the beach. We met in the community room, the one with a folding wall and coffee that tastes like legal disclaimers. Marcia Gutierrez sat at the center of a plastic table, gavel in reach though she rarely needs it. On either side, board members Lydia Cho and Earl Pritchard, and our property manager, Calvin Pierce, with a stack of forms that looked like they could build a dam. Shauna from the front desk waved me in and squeezed my shoulder. "I like your tabs," she whispered. My binder had dividers like traffic lights, green for insurance, yellow for HOA rules, red for screenshots. I'm not fancy, but I can color code a crisis. Derek and Ashley arrived last, whispering to each other with the hush of people who have rehearsed apologies. Ashley kept looking at the carpet as if the pattern could offer a plea bargain. Derek looked everywhere else, chin high, a man who thinks the room is negotiable if his voice gets louder. Board hearing called to order. Marcia, read the agenda and the section of the CC&RS that matters here. 8.3. No rentals under 30 days, no transient occupancy, violations subject to fines. She spoke like a metronome, not unkind, not theatrical, just steady. Then she turned to me. "Mr. Whitaker, would you like to state your understanding of what occurred?" I stood, open read, and handed out copies like church bulletins. "While I was on a road trip," I said, "my daughter and son-in-law listed my unit for short-term stays on a booking platform. I did not authorize it. When I learned of it, I sent a certified cease and desist, reported the listing to the platform, and delivered evidence to the management office. I also implemented a guest authorization list with ID verification at the front desk." Earl adjusted his glasses. "Do you have proof of the listing?" Calvin answered for me, sliding a printout down the table. "We independently captured screenshots with the unit number visible and the booking calendar. We verified through security logs that non-residents attempted to access the elevator with no authorization." Derek's chair squeaked. "Our friends stayed. It wasn't strangers." Lydia arched a single eyebrow, her superpower. "Your friends paid through a commercial platform that describes you as a host and references a cleaning fee. That is not a cousin on a blow-up mattress, Mr. Brooks." Ashley's voice came out small. "Mom was going to visit and then..." She stopped. She does that when the truth is inconvenient, opens a door and discovers the stairs are just painted on. Marcia steepled her fingers. "Mr. Whitaker, you mentioned insurance." I opened green. "My policy's occupancy clause excludes coverage while the unit is used for short-term lodging. If someone slips, if a kitchen fire spreads, if a guest propped open the stairwell door and a burglary happened, the carrier could deny the claim and cancel. I called the insurer yesterday to disclose the incident. Insurance call logged." I'd written the adjuster's name at the top of the page, Delaney Ortiz. She noted the disclosure, thanked me for documentation, and flagged the file as no claim filed. Owner proactively mitigated risk. She also said if the activity had continued, underwriting might have non-renewed. That's not academic. It's my roof. Earl cleared his throat. The board amended the enforcement policy last year. When the owner is not complicit and provides material assistance, fines may be assigned to the responsible occupants. We had to, after that bachelor party in 7C. He glanced at Lydia, who nodded as if she still hears bass through the vents in her sleep. Calvin slid another paper toward Derek and Ashley, a ledger pre-filled with lines for violator fines, daily rate, and administrative fees. We will determine amounts after discussion, he said. But we need clarity. Did you remove the listing? Ashley turned to me. They took it down, she said. Dad reported it and sent links. We also got an email. The account is, well, it says removed for building rule violations. I didn't smile. Smiling would have felt like lighting a victory cigar in a nursing home. The platform's trust and safety removed it, I said, and tapped red where the email sat snugly behind a clear pocket. Derek tried for wounded. We were covering utilities. The mortgage is heavy right now. It's not a mortgage, I said. It's my HOA dues, my insurance bill, my repairs. You don't get to turn my deed into a side hustle. Shauna, sitting at the back like the gallery, coughed into her fist to keep from saying, Amen. Marcia rapped the table with a pen, not the gavel. Here's the board's role. We are not your family therapist. We are here to enforce rules that keep 200 people sleeping through the night. That means fines. The question is, to whom? Silence can be gracious. This one was a little cruel. Ashley's shoulders tightened. Derek's foot bounced like a sewing machine. Lydia sorted my exhibits like a librarian. Mr. Whitaker acted immediately. He notified management, security, and the platform. He implemented an ID checklist at the desk. He did not profit. She turned to the others. I move that we levy fines against the responsible occupants, Ms. Brooks and Mr. Brooks, at the posted schedule, $250 per day of violation, plus $75 admin per occurrence, 3 weekends documented. Earl lifted a finger. We should note the mitigation. If the listing had continued, we could consider the maximums. As it stands, the evidence supports 3 weekends. Calvin nodded. Security logs show late-night attempts on the elevator during those dates. Housekeeping found a house manual in Unit 503 specifying checkout times and cleaning fees. I've included photographs. Derek's mouth opened and closed. This is punitive. It's corrective, Marcia said. And it's cheaper than a building-wide rate hike when our insurer re-rates after a claim on a transient guest. Ashley finally looked up. Tears made the carpet wobble in her eyes. Dad, I'm sorry, she said. I shouldn't have agreed to it. I wanted to hug her. I wanted to ask why she thought hustle outweighed home. I wanted to fix everything with the twist of a screwdriver. But some fixes take paper, signatures, consequences. The board voted. All hands raised. Fines approved against responsible occupants. Calvin filled in the ledger while Marcia read the appeal rights. Derek asked if payment plans existed. They do. He asked if this would go on a record. It will. Association records have long memories. Ashley asked if she could still use the pool. Lydia said yes, with a guest pass and some humility. When it ended, the room exhaled. Neighbors who had sat through for curiosity drifted out like the tide. Tom Avery shook my hand and said, Coffee on me this week. We stepped into the Florida sun and let our lungs relearn quiet low. The morning after the hearing, I woke up with a peculiar lightness that follows a good boundary, not joy, exactly, but the absence of dread. I brewed coffee, sat at the table, and sorted my binder tabs into a new stack labeled Aftermath. Paper doesn't forgive, but it organizes. First call, insurance. I asked for Delaney Ortiz again and got her on the second ring. She'd already read my disclosure. Mr. Whitaker, she said, you did everything right when you found out. We'll note your mitigation steps. Do you want an endorsement letter stating the unit is owner-occupied, no transit use? Some HOAs like that on record. Yes, I said. And I want the exact sentence from the occupancy clause in writing, the one that says short-term lodging voids coverage. She read it to me, calm and clinical, and I wrote it down like a spell. Then I asked the question that had been pacing in my chest since the first rolling suitcase. If the activity had continued, would you have non-renewed? Underwriting would likely have reviewed for non-renewal or surcharge, she said. Since you acted immediately and installed controls, we are keeping terms the same. Controls. That's a fancy word for locks and lists. I thanked her. She emailed the letter before we hung up. I slid it behind Green like a talisman. Second call, Calvin. I want to swap the keypad for an old-fashioned deadbolt, I said. 2 keys. One for me, one sealed at the desk. No copies without written request. I'll pay for the hardware and a change log. Calvin likes sentences with verbs. Done by the afternoon, he said. And bring your authorized guest list to the office. We'll laminate the quick version for Shauna. I made a guest authorization protocol, capital letters, numbered list, no wiggle room. All overnight guests listed by full legal name at least 24 hours in advance. Government ID checked at the front desk, name must match list. Key fob released only to listed guests, second fob stays at desk. Elevator access logged. No access for unlisted persons, front desk calls me first, then management, then non-emergency if necessary. I put it on one page. People read one page. Authorized guest protocol posted. Shauna read the laminated card like it was menu poetry. Finally, she said, tapping step 5. A recipe. At noon, locks changed. The keypad came off like a bandage you regret ever trying. The installer, a patient guy named Victor Hale, slid me 2 brass keys and an envelope stamped spare, front desk. Common sense in an envelope, he said. We shook hands like men who believe in metal. At 1, Derek texted. Heads up, we had a booking for this weekend before it got removed. They're already on their way. Can we just let them stay this one time? We'll keep it low-key. I stared at the screen until the letters blurred. The listing was gone, the fines were set, my insurer had breathed a temporary sigh, and still he was trying to squeeze one more night out of a lemon he'd already juiced dry. No, I typed. Do not direct anyone to my building. The platform removed the listing. The HOA has fined you. Any attempt to check in guests will be refused at the desk per the new protocol. He replied with a paragraph about sunk costs and fairness and how I didn't understand how hard it is right now. I put the phone face down. Understanding doesn't mean surrender. At 3, the couple arrived anyway, mid-30s, sunburned, dragging wheeled suitcases that hummed on the lobby tile. I came downstairs because Shauna called me, not because I wanted a scene. You can? The woman asked, trying a smile shaped like a coupon. We booked with Derek. We're here for the coastal gem. I'm Ken, I said. You were misled. The building prohibits short stays. The platform removed the listing. I'm sorry you were caught in this, really, but no one is checking in here today. The man frowned. We drove from Ocala. He said it was all good. Shauna slid the laminated card across the desk, a quiet show and tell. We can't release a key to unlisted guests, she said, tone set to kind but granite. We'd be violating building rules. I offered to call around to nearby motels. I offered bottled water. I offered the phone charger every lobby in America keeps in a drawer of lost things. I did not offer my couch. Derek burst in, a few minutes late and several inches angry. Ken, let's not make a federal case, he said, hands up, palms out, the universal sign for talking louder than sense. They're already here. They are here because you told them to come, I said. Knowing the listing was removed. The man with the suitcase looked between us. Is this a scam? No, I said. It's a rule. And a fire hazard. And an insurance clause. And a lot of neighbors who like to sleep. Derek lowered his voice. Just this once. Just this once is how we arrived here, I said. The answer is no. Shauna, to her credit, called Calvin, who asked for the couple's reservation email so he could help them get a refund. They showed him their phones. He took photos, promised to write a note confirming the building refusal was due to rules, not their conduct. The couple left with the heavy air of people who will tell this story at Thanksgiving and make me the villain in their version. I can live with that. Derek waited until they were gone. You cost us money, he said. You cost yourself money, I said. And now you're paying fines instead of buying groceries with my homeowner's policy. Ashley appeared at the doorway like a rain cloud that wants to be a sunset. Derek, she said softly. Stop. He stared at me. For a second I saw a boy who never learned the difference between pluck and permission. Then he dropped his eyes and left without touching the glass door he let his shut. Account suspended. Trust and safety notice. That evening, another email. The platform's trust and safety had suspended Derek's account due to repeated policy violations. There was a line about appealing after 60 days and a page of bullets about community standards. I forwarded it to Calvin and attached it to Red. I didn't send it to Derek. This wasn't a scorecard. Neighbors have long memories, but they're also transactional. You show up, you shovel, you bring donuts, they recalibrate. So I started showing up. The next morning, Tom and I skimmed the pool, rescued a deflated flamingo, and replaced a broom that shed more than it swept. I knocked on Mrs. Eng's door with a box of guava pastries from the Cuban bakery on Drew Street. She opened slowly, peered at the box, and said, "Peace offering," as if we were in a spy novel. "Apology," I said. "And a promise." She took a pastry like it was evidence. "No more rolling luggage at midnight?" "No more rolling luggage at midnight." We stood in her doorway eating sugar and quiet like communion. By Friday, the HOA letter arrived in Ashley and Derek's mailbox, fines itemized, due dates, and a section titled Payment Plan Request. They slid it under my door with a note. "We'll apply for the plan. We get it." Ashley's handwriting has always been careful, the way she was with doll hair and small animals. I wrote back with a check for nothing and a line that said, "I'll stay out of the plan. It's between you and the board." Saturday morning, Shauna used a new protocol for the first clean run. A man in wraparound sunglasses, cooler of hard seltzer in hand, said he was meeting friends in 503. She asked for his ID. It didn't match anything laminated. She pointed to step 5. He left, muttering about how unfriendly Clearwater had gotten, dragging the cooler like an insult. Protocol tested, access denied. I sat on the balcony that night with a bowl of cherries and the smugness I try not to feed. Down below, the pool lights glowed like runway beacons. Laughter you recognize hits different than laughter you don't. I could name the voices: Tom telling his fishing story backward, Mrs. Eng's granddaughter splashing and being scolded in Mandarin, Earl trying to fix the grill with a butter knife. Ashley texted close to 10. "Can I come up?" she wrote. "Alone?" I said yes. She came with a bag of groceries and that nervous energy of people who have decided to do the right thing and are worried it will still be wrong. She put milk in my fridge like she never moved out and sat at the table without asking. For a minute we talked about nothing: the rain that wants to and doesn't, the new movie Tom refuses to see because he thinks all movies should have fishing in them. Then she said, "You scared me, Dad." And I almost laughed because fear has been my roommate for a week. "When you sent the certified letter, I knew you were serious, but I didn't know you'd lawyer up." "I didn't lawyer up," I said. "I papered up. There's a difference. Paper keeps people honest." She nodded. "Derek thinks you embarrass him." "Derek embarrassed Derek," I said, gentler than it reads. "And you went along?" She folded her hands, thumb rubbing thumb like she was polishing a coin. "We're tight," she said. "His job cut hours. Mine's fine but not. I don't know. I like the idea that the couch could help. I didn't think about the building. Or your insurance. Or Shauna having to say no to dudes with coolers. I want to help," I said. "But I won't help like that." She breathed out. "Then help us do it right," she said, voice steadying. "Not renting, I get that. But boundaries. A calendar. Deposits if we stay for a stretch. We can sign something." Calvin said he'd look at a template. I nodded. "You can love an apology and still ask for a contract." "We'll draft a formal use agreement," I said. "Deposits. Blackout dates. ID checks. No short stays, period. If you break it, you pay for the break." She nodded back. "Okay." We sat until the cherries were gone. She adjusted the thermostat down to precisely 74 and grinned like a kid who knows the combination. Before she left, she hugged me at the door in that tight way she used to when report card envelopes were thick. "I'm sorry," she said into my shoulder, "for making you pick between being my dad and being the owner of this place. You made me be both," I said. "Which is what I am." After she left, I walked the rooms. No Bluetooth speaker, no welcome basket, no laminated house manual promising late checkout. Just my lamp, my rug, my dented baseboard still dented. I locked the new deadbolt and put the spare key in the envelope for Shauna with a neat signature across the seal. Controls. Not because I don't trust my daughter. Because I do, and trust deserves rails. Before bed, I wrote a line on a sticky note and pressed it to the fridge above the calendar where the hurricane tracking map lives. Shared roofs need shared rules. It felt less like a slogan and more like a weather report. The storm had passed. The boards were still up. Tomorrow, paperwork. Then maybe, peace that isn't just the absence of rolling luggage. Calvin keeps a template for everything. Monday he emailed, formal use agreement, owner-occupied unit. The subject line felt like someone had wiped a counter I didn't know was sticky. I printed 3 copies. Ashley came with a spiral notebook. Derek arrived late, phone in hand. We sat at the dining table where Thanksgiving once meant too much sage and not enough chairs. Ground rules, I said. The no short-term part is non-negotiable. Everything else we can tune. Calvin, on speaker, walked us through. No short-term or transient occupancy, minimum 30 consecutive days, pre-approved in writing, copy of any guest agreement on file. No advertising, no listings, no subletting, no code sharing. Violation equals immediate termination, forfeited deposits, notice to HOA. Deposits, $500 key/fob, $250 cleaning, refundable after inspection, real invoices for real damage. Blackout dates, January, March mine, plus hurricane prep/recovery, major repairs, and insurer inspections. Thanksgiving week negotiable with 2 months notice and 0 rolling luggage after 10 p.m. Authorized guests and ID. Full legal names 24 hours prior. Government ID at the desk. Fobs only to listed names. Indemnification. Any fines, damages, or insurance consequences from your use are yours. Noise and common areas. Quiet hours. No smoking. No luggage caravans at midnight. No prop doors. I added. No glitter. Vacuum it once and you learn religion. Parking. 1 space. Temporary tag for any second car. Tow risk acknowledged. Access and inspections. With notice, I can enter with management for walkthroughs. We should notarize, I said. UPS store. Stamp it and be done. Derek bristled. Do we really need to make it that official? Yes, I said. Ashley nodded. We'll notarize. And sign carefully, each letter sitting up straight. Formal use agreement, executed and notarized. The notary wore a polo with an embroidered eagle and looked at us like a school nurse. Thunk thunk stamps. 1 copy to my green folder, 1 to Kelvin, 1 to a kitchen drawer labeled agreements because I am a man who labels drawers. On the way back, Ashley apologized to Shauna. I made your job harder. You also made it clearer now, Shauna said, tapping the laminated protocol card. Clarity is hospitality for the rule-abiding. That afternoon, Delaney at the insurer emailed the endorsement. Owner-occupied, no transient use, material changes must be reported, short-term lodging voids coverage. I printed it and slid it behind green for the day future me needs a calming document. Distraction, tax form email. Derek forwarded a platform notice. We may issue tax reporting forms for payouts. He added, This is ridiculous. It wasn't. Money still smells like income. I thought we were just offsetting, he said. Offsets get reported too, I said. That's grown-up math. He stared at the balcony. I'm trying. I just didn't think this place had so many tripwires. It has people, I said. Tripwires exist because people sleep, and walk with canes, and want the mailboxes to be boring. That night I walked the building. Tom was in the courtyard teasing a stubborn hinge. Your paper ducks in a row? He asked. All quacking the same direction, I said, and we fixed the hinge because friendship is shared hardware. Upstairs, Earl folded association newsletters, adding a blurb on why the 30-day rule matters. Insurance, liability, taxes. Add sleep, I said. People understand sleep. Neighbor relations, repairs and donuts. Saturday a storm line tossed rain. The roof door rattled. I tightened the closer. Mrs. Ng watched from her doorway. Less slam, less hard jump, she said. I left a box of jellyfields on the lobby table. Thanks for patience, Ken IN 503. By afternoon the sky turned theatrical blue. Ashley returned with microfiber cloths and a determination to outclean regret. We boxed the Rogue, Hal's manual. Derek had printed, a relic of his brief career as host. I don't know what I was thinking, she said. You were thinking like the internet, I said. Fast, frictionless, consequence-free. This building is happily analog. She laughed. You and your labels. Labels are friction, I said. Friction keeps a couch from sliding when someone sits too fast. We fed the manual to the chute and listened to it vanish. Evening lemonade at the picnic tables. Lydia from the board power walked by. Thanks for modeling compliance, she said. I'm modeling survival, I said. Compliance is how you survive and still get invited to the potluck. Deposits, funds held. Per the agreement, Ashley Venmoed the deposits. $500 key/fob, $250 cleaning. Not punishment, buy-in. I put a sticky on the calendar, inspect after stay, return if clean. Sunday became the first test of the new rhythm. Ashley and Derek stayed 3 nights, legally, authorized at the desk, IDs checked. They cooked, cleaned the stovetop until I could see my future in it, and left a note shaped like decency. Dad, we'll do this right. Borrowing is not renting, staying is not hosting. A&D. Walkthrough, towels folded, trash out, thermostat back to 74, the blue Afghan not diagonal. I texted Kelvin. Inspection fine. Deposits to be returned. A small act performs like a large one when it happens where the trouble did. Karma, consequences land in the right mailbox. Midweek a municipal letter to Occupant Unit 503. Referenced a complaint about transient activity. City zoning prohibits rentals under 30 days. 2 boxes. Owner notified, case closed. Calvin had already sent our hearing minutes, the trust and safety removal, and the signed agreement. Case closed. Was checked. I filed it in red with a sigh that sounded like weather turning fair. Another envelope, this one for Ashley and Derek. HOA payment plan confirmation, due dates circled in board office blue. Derek texted a photo. We'll make the first payment Friday. I got an overtime shift. Karma, Tom said. Not mystical. Spreadsheet. Most karma here is a ledger balanced by human hands. As for me, I slept solid sleep. I woke to gulls, coffee, and the squeak of a stairwell sneaker that needs WD-40. I added it to a list titled Little Things That Keep Peace. That evening Ashley arrived with a proposal she'd worked up with Calvin, a shared Google Calendar titled Unit 503 Use. Color blocks marked my blackout months, their occasional stays, maintenance windows, and a square labeled hurricane drill. Analog heart, digital backup, she said. Okay, I said. But we print it monthly and tape it inside the pantry. Old school is a feature. She held up tape like a magician finishing a trick. Already thought of that. We posted the calendar next to the hurricane list, batteries, water, radio, numbers. In the corner I wrote the sentence that's been riding shotgun. Shared roofs need shared rules. Ashley underlined it, once. 2 weeks passed with the soft hum of normal, sprinklers at dawn, the elevator sighing like an old dog, Shauna greeting people by name instead of by confirmation number. Peace returned fast enough to seem inevitable. The binder on my table lost weight as red moved to the file drawer and green, insurance, grew a spine. Then life tested the system with something duller and more dangerous than a party, a leak. At 6:12 a.m., Earl knocked like a metronome. Ken, you got a drip? 4BS freckles just became constellations. I went downstairs with towels. Tom's kitchen ceiling bloomed brown. We cut his water, jogged back up, and I opened my door to silence, the good kind. A hiss came from 5CS wall, not my line. Calvin arrived with a toolbox and a plumber named Crystal Diaz, who pressed her ear to the drywall. Supply line in 5C, she said, already turning a wrench. Not Ken's. Not guests. Just age. Leak isolated, no transient guests involved. By 8, the hiss was gone, fans roared in 4B, and Calvin posted a notice, maintenance issue under the master policy, no evidence of prohibited rentals. Ashley brought breakfast tacos. Is this because of us? It's a pipe being a pipe, I said. Also a reminder, insurance matters when life is boring. By noon, Crystal had a section swapped and a receipt in Calvin's inbox. The system worked. Report, respond, repair, record. IRS notice received. While the fans hummed, Derek texted a photo that looked like a migraine, envelope with window and logo. 1,099K, he wrote. They're counting the payouts. Tax time scrapes romance off small hustles. I told him to talk to a CPA, not a man who labels drawers. How much trouble are we in? You're not in trouble for receiving a form, I said. You're in trouble if you pretend math is optional. That evening the board hosted a Q&A, why the rules exist. Lydia showed 3 photos, stairwell propped with a shoe, fire code, pool at midnight, noise, Donuts on a table, community. Calvin read the occupancy clause and explained how one guest can jeopardize coverage. Earl said his favorite line: "You bought here with rules on purpose. Freedom comes in flavors. This one tastes like quiet." Calvin nodded toward me. Mr. Whitaker did the unglamorous work: letter, report, verification. It protected him and the building. Shauna flashed a thumbs up like I'd fixed a copier. Karma, platform appeal denied. Derek appealed to the platform. He showed me their answer like a kid with a report card. After review, your account will remain suspended due to policy violations, including listing a unit in a building with published prohibitions. You may reapply in 60 days with documentation of compliance. 60 days is how long it takes to build a habit. I said. Let's build one where you don't try to list other people's roofs. We put the laws to work. Ashley pitched a resident welcome night: how not to accidentally Airbnb your home. On the whiteboard she drew a line: private home versus public lodging. Under private, neighbors, security, insurance, rules. Under public, guest reviews, revenue, risk. Neighbor relations, apology circuit. Ashley went door to door with apology cards and croissants. We were the source of the commotion. We won't be again. Derek carried the box and said hi more than he breathed. Mrs. Ng accepted the croissant like a treaty and pressed a wrapped candy into Derek's palm. You learn, she said. Earl took 2 croissants and returned one with jelly. Reparations with jam. Security, ID check drill. Shauna ran a desk drill for the weekend hire. What if someone claims they're with Ken and waves at the elevator? He reached for a fob. She tapped the laminated protocol and waited until he tracked the words with his finger. Read the list, match the ID, radio if unsure. He recited. Practice is policy, she said. Sunday's courtyard potluck celebrated nothing: no holidays, no hurricanes, just the absence of nonsense. Tom grilled. Someone brought a cake shaped like our building. Derek poured ice water and made small talk at a rate suggesting he was rewiring himself one outlet at a time. A neighbor asked his job. Logistics, he said. I'm good at moving things the right way. Fines, first payment posted. Monday, Ashley texted a screenshot: first installment processed. Ledger smaller. Calvin confirmed. Admin fee waived if remaining payments arrive early. He wrote. Derek sent Calvin 2 words: much obliged, and it landed like a grown-up. Later I pointed a new resident to NO short-term rentals. We take that one seriously, I said. He nodded. I heard a story. Stories keep us from being stories, I said. Maintenance, fire drill and lockbox audit. Calvin scheduled a fire drill and a lockbox audit. Everyone filed down the stairs. Everyone with a realtor box registered it or removed it. We found 2 dusty ones behind a ficus, relics from 2019. Compliance as archaeology. During the drill, Mrs. Ng moved carefully. Tom spotted. Derek held the door. Little axe stack into structure. Community, newsletter note. Earl asked for a short piece: what I learned when my unit almost became a hotel. I wrote, alarms aren't just smoke and sound. They are emails and whispers and the smell of cologne in the lobby. Compliance is love in a building with thin walls. Send a letter, bring donuts. Mostly, shared roofs need shared rules. Near month end, Derek brought me a folded sheet, not a defense, just a list: jobs applied to, shifts picked up, how the fine balance drops with 2 more weekends. I want to do this without you floating us, he said, and I believed him. We walked the hall listening to the quiet he used to break. The carpet has little waves, like someone stitched the gulf into nylon. You notice different things when you stop rushing, he said. I do. I noticed the difference between wheels on tile and shoes on carpet. Between a code texted to a stranger and a name on a list held by Shauna. Between an apology spoken and an agreement signed. This building isn't paranoid, it's precise. Precision keeps peace from being an accident. At the elevator, Shauna called. Brett passed the ID quiz. Derek gave her a thumbs up like a graduate. Back upstairs, the binder waited. Green grew by 2 pages, endorsements, confirmations, boring good news. Red is thinner now, not empty, because history isn't a shredder. I wrote one more line under the moral I repeat when love tempts me to go soft. We protect what we share by agreeing what we don't. Then I made coffee, labeled a folder little things that keep peace, too, and called Tom. Ceiling's ready, he said. We sat at the picnic table with lukewarm coffee, watching the pool lie flat as glass, agreeing that quiet is the only luxury that gets cheaper when everyone pays together. If karma had a clipboard, it would look like our bulletin board: dates, signatures, and a promise set in big print: home before hustle, neighbors before noise. Peace has a sound if you listen for it: mailboxes closing gently, a vacuum somewhere far away, Shauna's pen clicking when she checks an ID. After a month of unlearning chaos, our building hummed like a refrigerator finally leveled. Then, because the universe likes a quality control check, 3 tests arrived in a neat row: a clone listing, a compliance inspection, and a storm. Fake listing flagged. Tom Avery, fisher of snook, catcher of rumors, knocked with his phone. "Ken, is this your place?" he asked, flipping the screen. Someone had scraped my old photos and posted, "Gulfview Hideaway, Clearwater, Sleep 6, on a lesser-known platform." The couch, the clam lamp, even the dented baseboard hidden by a pot hose, my living room wearing a false mustache. I felt the old heat crawl up the back of my neck. Not again. Not even them. This was a stranger. I opened read, the thin but ready section, and pulled out copies of my deed, the HOA rule, and the platform removal email. Then I did what I'd learned to do: document, notify, report. I wrote a new cease and desist address to unknown poster, CC'd the platform's abuse address, attached the CCNR excerpt, and highlighted the sentence that should be etched on every lobby door: no short-term rentals. "Include the URL?" Kelvin texted. "Screenshots with timestamps." Shauna shook her head when I showed her. "People will rent anything that holds still," she said. "Good thing we check IDs." By afternoon, Trust and Safety, the off-brand version, wrote back: "Listing removed due to intellectual property complaint and building prohibition." I printed it and slid it behind read. I didn't celebrate. I did label the file "Scrapers," because I am not above revenge by organization. Compliance, city/insurance doubleheader. 2 days later, a man with a municipal lanyard and a frown introduced himself: Gabe Morales, Code Compliance. "We're following up on a prior complaint about transient rentals," he said at the lobby, eyes skipping from the security cameras to the bulletin board like a chess player scanning a new board. "Building management submitted minutes and policy. Mind if I verify?" "Please," I said, and led him through the unglamorous tour: the rule in the glass case, the guest authorization protocol laminated by Shauna, the sign-in log, and the no lockbox policy taped to a ficus that still bears 2019's dust mark. He flipped through his clipboard, then looked up softer. "I wish every building did this well. We get a lot of it's just a weekend. That turns into stairs propped open and insurance cancellations. Your paper trail is a model." He checked a box. "Case, confirmed, mitigated." I shook his hand like he just fixed my AC. That afternoon, as if the city and the insurers share a cosmic calendar invite, Delaney from my carrier called. "We're doing a routine occupancy audit for coastal condos," she said. "We have your disclosure and endorsement. Would you mind a quick walkthrough for documentation?" I minded in the way you mind a tetanus shot. Necessary medicine. We scheduled for Friday at 10. Friday, I welcomed Delaney and a quiet man who measured rooms with a laser. I showed the formal use agreement with its blackout dates and fob deposit receipts. Delaney checked the smoke detectors, peered at the kitchen fire extinguisher tag, and asked one pointed question. "Any advertising of the unit as lodging since your report?" "No," I said, and handed her the printout from the off-brand platform takedown. "Someone tried a clone. We got it removed within hours." She smiled, the kind of insurance smile that means your premium lives to fight another day. That's exactly how to handle it. Insurance inspection pass. She emailed the note before the elevator hit the lobby: owner occupied, controls installed, no transient use, inspection passed. I printed it, slid it behind green, and sat for a minute with my coffee cooling in my hand, grateful for the mundane authority of paperwork done right. Hurricane watch. The Gulf exhaled a line of storms on the radar shaped like bad news. The local station said tropical storm watch by suppertime. By morning, possible Hurricane Hannah. Names repeat like old songs you don't want back. We've done this dance. You tape the pantry list to your forehead: water, batteries, radios, patio furniture inside, prescriptions refilled, cars parked high. And you talk to your people. "Dad, do you want us here?" Ashley asked. The formal use agreement has a clause that reads like a grown-up: emergency repairs trump everything. It also sits next to a line that means more here than any refund: we help our neighbors. "Yes," I said. "Arrive before the wind. Bring ID for Shauna anyway." They showed up with deli meat, flashlights, and the useful kind of fear. Derek went from door to door with Tom, securing balcony chairs with rope and sailor knots YouTube would applaud. Ashley ran a phone tree with Mrs. Ing as the hub, logging who needed what, extra water, duct tape, a ride to the pharmacy, someone to move a potted plant that had become a family member. Calvin opened the community room and rolled out the old generator like a stubborn ox. If the grid pops, this keeps the elevator alive for emergencies only, he said. Derek volunteered to babysit it for the first shift. I'm good with schedules, he said to me, and I believed him. Blackout dates, honored under pressure. The watch turned to a warning. Hannah slid north and west, then seemed to remember we exist. Rain hammered, palm trees rehearsed ballet. We hunkered, listened to the wind try the windows, and felt our phones vibrate with alerts that read in a tone only phones can do, now means now. It came, it growled, it left. Morning unveiled puddles, leaves, and a roof that sighed but held. The generator, stroked and scolded, had kept the elevator alive. Mrs. Ing waved from her door. Nothing broken, she announced, the best 2 words in a Florida building. Storm cleanup is where you see if your rules are bones or decoration. People showed up with gloves. Derek directed a hallway brigade like an air traffic controller without the yelling. Ashley organized a pot of coffee for the lobby with the last of a camping stove canister and a stubborn French press. Shauna set up a check-in table for residents who went to stay with family and were trickling back. IDs matched the list like satisfying clicks. By noon, Calvin held a short meeting. Blackout dates remain intact, he said, nodding to me. Repairs come first, then normal life. We'll file a report to the insurer and the city. Thank you to everyone who... He looked at Derek. Managed logistics. Derek flushed a color that doesn't happen on party nights. Just kept the hallway clear, he said. HOA budget meeting, fines allocated. A week later, the board convened to rework the budget for minor storm repairs. On the agenda was a line I didn't expect to feel in my chest: allocation of violation fines to security upgrades. Marcia tapped the spreadsheet. We have funds collected from the Brooks violations. We can either roll them into general repair or purchase an ID scanner and a better camera at the lobby door. Lydia glanced my way. Seems like poetic efficiency, she said. Fines raised by misuse strengthen the rule that prevents misuse. Earl grinned. Karma with a purchase order. They voted for the scanner and camera. Calvin added, installation this month. Ashley squeezed my forearm in the hall afterward. I hate that our mistake bought hardware, she whispered, but I love what it buys. Derek, to his credit, didn't flinch. I'll help install, he said to Calvin. No charge. Employment, job offered. 2 days later, Calvin found Derek on the ladder running cable clean along the baseboard, blue tape mapping his path tighter than anything he ever taped down before. You're good at this, Calvin said. We have a seasonal need, move-in coordinator on Saturdays, lockbox audits, contractor check-ins, helping Shauna with ID training. Interested? It's on the books. W-2, not vibes. Derek blinked like a person who had expected penance, not payroll. You'd hire me? After. I'm hiring what you're doing now, Calvin said. Precision. Schedules. Talking to people without making them want to gnaw the drywall. Your past mistake is part of your training. Just don't repeat it. Derek said yes with the startled gratitude of a man offered a rope after falling into a lesson. That night he knocked on my door with a form. You were right, he said, handing it over for my look-see. Math isn't optional. I figured it out with a CPA. The fines will be done in 2 months if the hours hold. Also, I have to fill out an I-9 and a W-4, and I have questions about the boxes because I still think withholding sounds like a threat. It is, I said. A threat against April surprises. Sit. We poured over lines and boxes gentle as we were now with each other. Ashley brought in a bowl of cut mango that made the room smell like a better country. We talked about blackout dates and Thanksgiving and whether my ham recipe is a state secret. It isn't, it's mustard and patience. Neighbor relations, a second chance earned. A few days later, Mrs. Ing stopped Derek in the hall. You are reliable now, she said, handing him a spare key to water her plant if she naps too long. That is how forgiveness arrives here, not with speeches, but with responsibilities that can be lost. In the newsletter, Earl added a little box, Karma Corner. It wasn't sanctimonious, it was practical. Fines from violations funded our new ID scanner and camera. It read, Thank you to the community for pushing the world back toward common sense. On Friday, Gabe Morales from the city returned to admire the camera's view. Clean, he said approvingly. Clear faces, clear dates. Fewer headaches for everyone. He looked at the laminated protocol and whistled under his breath. Best I've seen east of the causeway this month. Formal use agreement, lived, not just signed. We printed the shared calendar and taped it into the pantry. Ashley had blocked off January through March with a green highlighter, Derek added. No guests past quiet hours. To the bottom like a man leaving himself a post-it on his worst habit. I added hurricane drill for next June, because practice doesn't happen by accident. We also tested the deposits clause the right way. They stayed a week during a plumbing repipe floor review. They left the place cleaner than they found it, took the trash out to the chute, not the hallway, and texted me a photo of the thermostat set to 74. I returned the cleaning deposit the same day. It felt ceremonial, restitution not as punishment, but as rhythm. The call I didn't expect. One evening the couple from Ocala, remember them? Emailed me. We were the ones you turned away, the subject line said. I braced for venom and got humility. We got our refund after your manager wrote the letter. We booked a legal place and learned how to check HOA rules first. We wanted to say, thanks for standing firm. Our friends had a nightmare at a building that didn't. Yours is how it should be. I printed it and tucked it behind red, not because I need validation from strangers, but because sometimes the story loops back and says, yes, that was the right door to hold shut. As summer leaned into itself, the building felt earned, laughter you recognize, mail that's boring, compliance that reads as kindness. Derek's first paycheck from Calvin arrived with taxes already peeled off like a bandage you don't feel when someone distracts you. He held it up like a fishing photo. It's small, he said, grinning. And I love it. I compared dates on the ledger, fines shrinking, storm report filed, city case closed, insurer inspection passed. And there, by the pantry calendar, the sentence that has gone from mantra to muscle memory, shared roofs need shared rules. We were finally living it, not just framing it. And we had one part left to write, the kind where you say out loud what you learned, sign all over again, and mean it. 60 days is enough time for habits to set like concrete. By the time the Gulf remembered how to be lazy again, our building moved with the muscle memory of a place that had rehearsed its rules and found them fit. Fines paid in full. On a Tuesday morning that glowed the color of post-storm calm, Derek slid an envelope under my door. Inside, a copy of the HOA ledger with balance, $0. 00 circled in board office blue. He made the last payment early. Calvin later confirmed with a brisk, posted, and an accidental smiley face that made him look 20 years younger. Derek showed up a beat later in his maintenance polo, newly issued, name patch crooked like a proud badge. Done, he said, not triumphant, just relieved. I'm officially a guy who paid a fine instead of being a guy who makes one. We shook hands. It felt like screwing down the last plate after a repair. You know it still needs a wipe, but the rattle is gone. ID scanner online. That afternoon, the scanner went live. Shauna waved IDs under the little square that blinked and beeped like an approval fairy. The new camera showed faces sharp enough to spot a frown before it became a problem. Gabe Morales from the city did a victory lap with Calvin, nodded at the screen, and said, "This is how you keep a building from becoming a motel by accident." Shauna posted a tiny sign next to her paper tray, "Friends are on the list. Guests are on the booking sites." We have neither. It made people laugh and then nod, which is how culture builds. Occupancy, platform update. Right on the 60-day mark, Derek got the email he had both dreaded and anticipated. "You may reapply to host." He came up with his phone as if it were a test result. "I'm not reapplying," he said before I could ask. "Even if I did, not here, not ever in a building that says no." I think I like being known as the guy who installs the cameras, not the guy who gets caught by them. Ashley slid onto the couch and grinned. He found out logistics is just common sense with a walkie-talkie. You found out mortgages and insurance are just fear with invoices. I said, and Ashley threw a pillow at me like we were back when she was 12 and my jokes were free. Formal use agreement, renewed and clarified. Calvin suggested we treat the agreement like a smoke detector, test it, date it, refresh it annually. We met at the table with the original 3 copies, a pen, and small additions we'd learned by doing. Holiday protocol, Thanksgiving week is case by case, requests by September 1st, no arrivals after 9 p.m., and pies may not occupy the entire fridge. Inspection window, walkthrough within 24 hours of departure, photos sent with timestamp to a shared folder labeled Clean AS you found it. key/fob rules, fob deposit stays, but we added a line, misuse equals permanent loss of fob privileges for a year, anchor heavy but fair. We signed again. The notary at the UPS store remembered us. Y'all again, she said, and thunk the stamps. Dergrit by paper, growth by ink. Blackout dates posted, calendar humming. We printed the new calendar and taped it inside the pantry. January through March mine. June marked hurricane drill. A couple of small, polite blocks marked A&E stay, authorized with Shauna's initials scrawled when she logged their IDs. Analog heart, digital backup, like Ashley says. On the fridge I kept the sentence that's become our structural beam, shared roofs need shared rules. People now pointed at it and smiled like a familiar street sign. You don't read it anymore, it just guides you. Karma, neighbor version. Mrs. Ng called me from her doorway with a kind of ceremony. I want you to see, she said, and pointed to a small plastic card taped inside. It was our guest authorization card, with her niece's name and the dates she might stay to help after a knee procedure. I made one for me, she said. My handwriting is big for Shauna. You're a trendsetter, I told her. She patted my arm and gave Derek the job of watering her peace lily. If I nap too long. Which is what mercy looks like on our floor, not a speech, a plant. Tom Avery decided to memorialize everything with a cookout he called Fine Free Friday, which is grammatically questionable and spiritually correct. The courtyard filled with the sounds of burgers that needed flipping and stories that no longer needed whispering. Lydia showed up in sneakers and an HOA t-shirt that said rules are neighbors you can read. Earl did what Earl does, folded newsletters in a corner, and wrote a box for the next edition. How we turned a mess into a policy we're proud of. He asked if he could reprint my line. I told him to tattoo it on the pool rules if he wanted. The talk, a new resident orientation. Calvin conscripted me and Ashley to give the 5-minute orientation talk to new residents, a live version of the pamphlet. I said my piece, the 30-day minimum, the insurance clause, the guest ID protocol, the early and often tradition of donuts when you mess up. Ashley told the story without names, a condo, a listing, a mess, receipts, a fix. What saved us, she said, was that the owner acted like an owner, and the building acted like a village. A young couple, Nate and Brianna Foster, nodded in that way people do when they suspect they might also need to learn the slow way. Later they brought down a cheesecake. Just in case we ever need mercy. Which is the sweetest bribe I will gladly accept. Odds and ends, the little things that keep peace. We used the new ID scanner to calm a small storm. A friend of a friend who waved his hands like permission would arrive if he gestured enough. The scanner did its polite beep no. He left with a shrug and no scene. The absence of drama is the quiet genius of good equipment, and people who use it. We ran the hurricane drill on a clear June morning. Everyone trudged down the stairs in flip-flops and humor. Derek and Tom checked the generator like it was a plane. Ashley ran the contact list and found 3 wrong numbers, which we fixed with a round of shouted questions in the courtyard. Shauna, Empire of the front desk, timed us with a stopwatch and announced we were faster than last year, slower than she wants. Which is how improvement works when nobody is getting graded but everyone likes gold stars anyway. Insurer, status, uneventful. Once a quarter, Delaney's office auto sends a boring email, status unchanged, owner occupied, no transient use reported. I print it like a rosary bead and feed it to Green. The folder is a quiet victory parade of did it right. I called Delaney once to thank her for the straight talk that first week. You're my favorite kind of policyholder, she said. The kind who reads the lines before finding the fine print. I told her we'd turned our finds into a camera. She laughed. That's practically art. The visit, and apologies full circle. One evening, just after the sunset turned the parking lot into a postcard, Derek knocked with someone behind him. It was Jay, the trust and safety rep who had emailed me back in the thick of it, in town visiting family. I wanted to see the building that gave us one good file in a month of disasters, he said. Most people send us keyboard smoke. You send us proof, acted quickly, and didn't try to argue the physics of rules. We showed him the desk, the scanner, the laminated card. He took a photo, faces blurred. He works where privacy is king, and said, I wish we could mail this to every It's Just a Few Nights guest. He shook Derek's hand in a way that made both men look like they might cry if the room were a different room. You did the right hard thing after doing the wrong easy thing, Jay said. That's the story I want to tell. Thanksgiving, the test of a truce. Fall arrived on the backs of school buses. On September 1st, Ashley submitted the Thanksgiving request in writing like a valedictorian of compliance. We approved it with notes. Arrive Wednesday by 7 p.m., leave Sunday by noon, pie $1 per shelf. They came with a turkey the size of a football team. We ate in the same room where the cease and desist once sat like an unexploded firecracker. We laughed about how I used to label chords and now I label people. You label outcomes, Ashley said, which is kinder and not untrue. After they left, the walkthrough was a formality. The deposits went back the same day. One small ritual, the kind of ceremony that tells everybody, the rules aren't here to catch you, they're here to keep us. Epilogue, the other door. We never did put the keypad back on. I kept the old deadbolt, and the envelope at the desk was spare, front desk written in my knee print. I like metal. I like the way it says, I turn one way, you turn the other, and between us, things stay where they belong. On the bulletin board, Earl pinned a photo of our courtyard potluck with a caption that read, Community is the opposite of convenience. Choose accordingly. Below it, Lydia posted a reminder about the 30-day rule with a QR code that links to the exact CCNR clause, because even HOA flyers have learned to live in 2025. I still take Tom's calls about hinges. I still bring donuts when I mess up. Last week I missorted the recycling. I have never seen Lydia so gentle. Shauna still teaches the weekend hire to ask for IDs like she's teaching table manners, firm, warm, unembarrassed. Mrs. Ng still taps her cane to the beat of the elevator and says, less slam, which is also a life philosophy. If there is a grand accounting, it looks like our lobby table, a new camera watching the door, a scanner catching names before they become nuisances, a laminated card that turned a flat rule into a lived ritual, a green folder that hums with boring in the best way, and a family that learned you can love each other more when the boundaries stop being a fog and start being a line you both can see. Karma didn't show up with incense and thunder. It showed up with email timestamps, a city inspector who said, case mitigated, a line item in a budget that bought a scanner, and fines that landed in the right mailbox. It showed up as Derek lifting Mrs. Ng's grocery bag without being asked, as Ashley putting her name and dates on Shauna's clipboard, as me signing a renewal without my hand shaking. In the end we kept the promise we were supposed to make the day I bought the condo and signed the CC and RS without squinting. This is not a hotel. This is our home. When you put those words in action, it sounds like sleep. It tastes like coffee in a lobby where the only bags with wheels belong to people who live here. The moral isn't new, but we earned it. Shared roofs need shared rules.